Hi everyone, my name is Chelsea. Welcome to Little Mountain Ranch. I'm really happy to have you here with me today. I have a whole bunch of stuff to show you and catch you up on here on the farm, but I thought we would start out the morning with getting our chores done. I've already wandered down to the garden this morning and pulled off the frost blankets off of the squash and the pickling cucumbers. And as you can see, there is really not much going on as far as growth. They look pretty much the way they did when I planted them 2 weeks ago. It has been so cold here, and we still have a few more days of cold weather to contend with before it is going to warm up. And that is very hard on heat-loving plants like the cucumbers, like the squash. So I have a feeling it's not going to be the best year this year for those plants, but a lot of the other plants are looking great, and I'll show you those when we wander back up to the garden. But right now, I'm going to uncover my peppers. So even though we're in the high tunnel, it's still getting pretty cool at night. So I am covering my peppers with this frost blanket. You can see it's just a finely woven blanket, but it works really well for keeping the heat in close to the plants from the ground, because the ground absorbs a ton of heat during the day, and this kind of blocks it in there. And the peppers have been doing so much better since I started covering them at night, and I'm going to cover them every night until we are up over that magic 10 degrees Celsius, which, what was that in Fahrenheit? I think that's 40 degrees Fahrenheit is kind of the prime nighttime temperature, or as low as you want it to go, I should say. And we have not come close to hitting that. Last night it got down to 5 degrees, and the tomatoes aren't the happiest in temperatures like that, but they can handle it. The peppers, it pretty much stunts their growth, and it causes them to go into shock every single time they get cold like that. So it really slows their overall growth if they're getting cold, cold like that every single night. So this blanket has been a game changer. So I have about 5 plants left that I need to actually tie onto the yarn that I have tied all the way across on both sides of the high tunnel to trellis up my tomatoes that grow along the side. So I have them, as you can see, these ones are already all attached, and so are those ones. And then I also got all of the tomatoes along this side, all pruned and attached onto the trellis there. The only thing that I have left in here to do today is to get the rest of the weeding done on the pepper plants, but all the rest of it is good now to go probably for another week, and then I'll have to come in and do the same thing again, get everything tied up. So what I do with these strings, let me just quickly show you before we go grab our milk cow. So I just use a piece of yarn, and I've talked about this before, I just really like yarn because it's so soft. So I will prune off the bottom 6 to 8 inches or so of the tomato plant so the leaves don't touch the ground. And then I just take the string around here and I gently tie it onto the base of the plant like that. Then I'll go along and prune off all the suckers on here. And then all I do here is wind this around. And then as the plant grows, I just keep winding it. And it's usually every week or so, sometimes 4 or 5 days, depending on how quickly they're growing. So we'll just do this one quickly, pop these off. And since I only have a couple left to do, we may as well just do these ones. A couple of you mentioned the toads that you could see in my high tunnel in my last video, moving around behind me as I was talking. And I do have this year a couple of toads that have decided to make their home in my high tunnel, and they are most welcome guests because I do have some grasshoppers and some other critters in here that they will eat up and take care of for me. So they're welcome to stay as long as they like. So where is Thistle? Thistle had a calf 3 days ago now, I want to say, and it is a beautiful calf. So here is our new little baby. Hi, honey. I think we're gonna call her Aster. We haven't named her yet, but isn't she a cutie? So these are our other cows. Where are you going, Oakley? What you doing? You gonna say hi to the new baby? Oh, you're such a good boy. Oakley has to get some cosmetic surgery. So we brought Oakley to the vet a couple of days ago to be neutered. With Great Pyrenees, you want to wait till they're at least a year old, better yet 18 months old, before you neuter them, because they need the testosterone in order to grow really healthy bones. So anyway, we brought him in to get neutered, but we had noticed recently that his eyes were running quite a bit, so we had used eye drops in them and that wasn't clearing them up, so we asked the vet to take a look. And it turns out that I have very noisy cows in the background. It turns out that Oakley's bottom lid is turned in, so his eyelashes are growing kind of into his eyes and just irritating his eyes all the time. So he has to have eye drops for 2 weeks, and then he goes back to the vet to get surgery where they're going to actually remove kind of part of the skin so that the lid can roll out instead of in. So this is our little herd of cows. This is Milkweed's calf. She's such a sweetheart. This is Milkweed over here. This is Red. He is our beef steer. And then in behind is Miss Honey, who's just an absolute sweetheart. She's going to be having a calf here pretty soon too. Come on. Shh. Good girl. Easier than I thought. That's good. Come on. Shh. Let's go. Come on. Good girl. That's a good girl. No problem. What a good girl you are. Such a good girl. Well, she's the best milk cow ever. She just walked right in, no flinching, no kicking or anything like that, which is fantastic. So we're just going to milk her out. I'll show you how much milk we get at the end. So because she just had a calf, the first milk is colostrum, so that's really thick, really rich, wonderful milk for the baby, not so delicious for human beings. So we'll be freezing some of this milk in case we had a calf that wasn't able to get colostrum, and then we'll discard the rest of it. When we had pigs, we used to give it to the pigs. The pigs absolutely loved it, but we don't have pigs anymore. Oh, I can show you our teenage chickens while we're in here. So these are a couple of our chicks that we hatched out and raised, and then also some Icelandic chicks that I bought, and they're going to be ready to go out into the main flock here pretty quick. These are the cows we have separated because they keep wanting to nurse off their moms, even though they are far too old for that. Oaks, you're such a good boy. Yes, you are. Good morning. Come on. Hang on, I gotta open the gate. Come on, up you go. Enjoy your outside time. See you later, guys. I don't know if you can hear the machines up on the hill, but we have made some serious progress with our land clearing up on the mountain. I'll take you up there in a little bit and show you. It looks so awesome. I'm so excited about it. We're going to run the machine for a little while yet. We're almost done, sweetheart. Just about. One of the things about a recently freshened cow, so that means that she's just had a baby, is that she will experience edema in her udder. So that's just actually swelling of the tissue, and it can look like there's a ton of milk in there, but it's actually the tissues itself. And usually within around a week or so, that swelling will go down, but it is something you want to keep an eye on, just because you don't want to have a case of mastitis develop, and that's an infection of the mammary glands. We always keep a close eye on our milk cows when they've freshened, and if they're starting to look really, really engorged, then we'll milk them like we are with her. Normally we'll wait about 2 weeks before we start milking for the house and let the calf have all of that milk. Okay, we're just gonna check our meat bird feed and water. So we have this electrified poultry netting around a large area for our meat birds to be on pasture. So they have lots of water. Turkey lurkeys. And breakfast. So this A little chicken tractor here my boys actually made. So there's wheels on the back, handle on the front for moving it around. So then they have this lid here so that we can easily fill the feeder. And this has been working really, really well for them. So we're actually gonna have to be moving them onto some new pasture here pretty quick. They're munching it down. Okay, now we'll run up and check the rabbits and the laying hens. This is our little rabbit tractor here. And we have the smaller rabbits that are in the back there. Those are actually going to be going to their new home soon. And then we have one more over there that we're going to be selling. But they have their water and their food's all full. So this tractor, one of my other sons actually made a couple of years ago, and it's fantastic. It has the wheels on the back. Then we just move them onto fresh grass every day. Last up over here is our chickens. Hey guys. That is a broody hen. Oh, there's an egg. Oh, I know, I hear ya. Waters are all full, but they do need a top off of their feed. Dan's watering his hanging baskets. I've shared before that I'm the worst at keeping hanging baskets alive. I don't know why, I just can't do it. So he's taken it over. This one needs water too. So we're gonna go back down to the barn and put Thistle back with her baby, and we'll see how much milk we ended up getting off of her. And then Dan said he'll take us up to the area that we're clearing, and we can show you what he's been up to in the last couple of weeks. He's made so much progress, and it's very exciting. So actually only a couple gallons of milk, and you can see how it's kind of pink. So a thick sort of orangey color is typical for colostrum, but sometimes when they get a lot of swelling like she has, the edema I was talking about, little blood vessels can burst inside of their udder, and then that can make your milk a little bit pink just because it's tinted with the blood. That's the reason why we don't drink it when it's this early in her freshening. There you go, girl. There you go. Good girl. Come on, love. Come on, she's over this way. Come on. Let's take your halter off, okay? There you go. Go find your baby. Good girl. Okay, I gotta go hang the halter back up, and then we'll head up and jump on the quad. Once we're back in the flow of milking with the milking machine again, I'll kind of take you through the whole entire process of it. But this is the first time we've pulled out the milking machine. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, for months. We don't have a heated milking parlor, which is something we would really like to have for this upcoming winter. So when it gets really cold outside, the milking machine does not want to run. So we hand milk when it's cold. But it would be nice one day to have a heated milk parlor. All right, let's grab Dan. Tons of the gravel and everything from up over here, and making kind of a landing spot for all of his equipment down over here. This is looking so good, hun. Okay, so this area here, Dan has been working on that machine right there. I'll run over there and show you. So this is called a root rake. And these tines dig right into the ground and pull out all the roots and the stumps. You've had to dig out a bunch of the stumps though, right? Like the really big ones?
No, I've been able to get them all with a bulldozer.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
You just have to work around them.
Yeah.
Break all the roots off.
So he's been working on this big section over here. So this down here, these are our hay fields you can see back in the background. So that's what you can see from the house. And then this big area here is going to be another hay field. We're super excited about this. Is he processing over there?
Yeah.
I can hear it. So you can hear the machine in the background. Oh, you've got raindrops on you, one sec. The processor, I don't know if we'll be able to see it from here, but the big machine called a processor takes the trees and runs them through and pulls all the branches off, and then you can cut it into the lengths to be able to fit up on the logging truck. Oh yeah, we can. Hang on. We'll zoom you in. So I'm not sure if you can see that big machine back there in the background. We have had a logging truck pull 1 or 2 loads out of here, just 1 load so far out of here, but that's pretty exciting. This whole entire thing, just being able to convert all of this land into pasture and hay is fantastic. And we're of course still keeping tons of the forest kind of surrounding each of these meadow areas. We found the coolest thing when we cleared this area up over here. Let me show you. I'm gonna put my hat up. It is really, really cold out here. Yeah, it's just definitely. It's almost like toque weather. Oh my gosh. My poor plants. This weather also makes it very challenging to do the logging too, because the road, as you can see, gets really muddy. That's one of the reasons that Dan's been working so hard on getting everything graveled, just so that the machines can work safely in here. This is so cool what we found up here. So I've told you before that the water that feeds our house and all of our irrigation is spring. So it's a spring and it's gravity fed. So the spring is up high, and then we have pipes that run it down to our house. So our water system isn't reliant on power, which is really nice, and the water's excellent. And I don't know if it shows on camera, but this is a pretty steep incline here. I'm gonna be out of breath by the time we get up to the top of it. I don't know if you can see from here how steep this is. It really just doesn't show how steep it is, but it is steep. Oh, it's running. Look at this, friends. Can you see that water is running? So it's coming out of the ground and running down. And then it goes back into the ground here and comes out way over there somewhere. So what we're hoping is that we can put a pipe in at the base of this pond that we're going to be building here, and then run water all the way down and be able to irrigate our field and also feed our livestock, or water our livestock from it. So this was pretty exciting when we found this. So many cool things that we are doing on this property right now. It is very exciting. One of my adult kids came out last week and was saying, when I was showing her what we were doing, she said that it's really cool to be able to see all of these things that Dan and I have talked about all these years since we first bought our place 9 years ago, kind of coming to fruition now. Building up a homestead like this is definitely a long game type of endeavor. Does not happen overnight, that's for sure. But it is so exciting to see it happening. By the end of this summer, our hope is to be able to have the land actually cleared and de-stumped and rooted and all of that kind of stuff, so that we can seed it and have this actually operational by next summer. I just noticed out here that the wild roses are all blooming, and I like to make wild rose jelly. So I think maybe we'll come out. I'm gonna wait till it's a nicer day than this and pick some rose petals and make some jelly. It's so good, it's so beautiful, it's so delicate. Dan's gonna give me a ride back down to the house, and we are going to. We're gonna pick some rhubarb and freeze dry some rhubarb. Look at the size of this comfrey. It is just massive. I could probably cut it down at this point. So we're going to take some rhubarb out of here. Not too many out of this one, because I've harvested off of this one pretty heavily already this year. So rhubarb frozen is fantastic. You can just do what I'm gonna do when I put this in the freeze dryer, just into the freezer. But my freezer space is a hot commodity around here because we produce all of our meat, and we usually butcher like an entire steer and then have to have that fit into our freezers. So I use the freeze dryer instead of my freezer for a lot of things. Ah, this one is starting to bloom. That's awesome. The bees love comfrey. Oh my gosh, look. There is a honeyberry that's ready to eat. First honeyberry of the year. So good. Oh my gosh, there's more. These taste kind of like a blueberry, huckleberry, little raspberry kind of flavor. Best berry for the northern garden, but one thing I will say about them is that the birds also love them. So I've heard from a lot of people that they need to net their bushes so that the birds don't eat them all. Being able to eat a berry off of a bush up here in the north this early in the season is fantastic. Wow, look at that one. So delicious. I can be a bit more aggressive off this one. Actually, I have 2 plants here that's done so well this year with all the rain. A lot of things have done well. So cooler temperatures are good for some things, like rhubarb, like brassicas, like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, all that kind of stuff. The potatoes are actually doing really well with all the rain and the cooler weather. So I think it'll be a good year for some things and not so much for some of the other things, which is pretty typical of gardening, really. It's not often that I have a year where every single thing does really well. Sometimes it can be a bit discouraging this time of year when it's a cooler, wet spring though, because it takes so long for everything to get going. So what we want to make sure that we do is leave enough leaves on this plant that the plant can be feeding that root so that we get a good crop next year. Oh my gosh, look at all the apples on this. Can you see all those apples? I'm gonna have to come out and start thinning my apples. If I were to allow all of these apples to grow, it would end up breaking these little branches on these young trees. And apparently it can impact the production for the following year, especially on apple trees like mine are. I don't know if all apple trees are like this, but the varieties I have tend to be biennial. This year is my apple year, which is great. I hardly had any last year, but they're just loaded this year. And fortunately, it was warm enough when the flowers bloomed that we didn't end up getting them killed off by frost, and it was warm enough that the bees were able to get in and pollinate them all. So that's fabulous. All right, I think that should be good. That'll be it for the rhubarb harvest for this year. So now I'm just going to cut off all the leaves, and like I said, I just leave the leaves in the beds to act as a mulch. All right, let's head up to the house. So I have washed up our rhubarb and I'm just cutting it into bite-sized pieces. This is the same size I would use for if I was going to freeze them. So now we'll go down to the freeze dryer room. This is my freeze dryer room, and it's kind of a bit of a mess at the moment, but as you can see, we have chewed through a lot of the stuff that we freeze dried last summer. So I started this about 10 minutes ago and it just cooled the chamber. Now we're gonna add in our stuff. And this is my first run through of this year, actually. I don't use the freeze dryer in the winter time. It runs pretty much nonstop from now all the way until the fall. And then I just wanna make sure my valve's closed on the back. Continue. And now it's going to freeze. It is recommended to pre-freeze your whatever it is that you're going to freeze dry, just because it shortens the freeze drying time, but it isn't necessary. So we're going to go upstairs and I'm going to share with you my thoughts on the freeze dryer and whether I think it is a worthwhile purchase. So our primary reason for wanting to have a freeze dryer was for long-term food storage, because when you freeze dry food, it can last for up to 25 years and even longer. I love the idea of having long-term food storage, and that's food that we're storing for just in case of an emergency. The things that I love freeze drying that I actually use regularly throughout the winter, freeze-dried fruit is absolutely fantastic. It makes such a great snack in the wintertime. Things like strawberries, actually any kind of freeze-dried fruit really. My kids' favorites are strawberries and bananas. Mangoes are also really good. I personally love onions, garlic, and celery, or any kind of ingredient that I'm going to throw into soups. I would say that nothing compares to freeze-dried herbs outside of freshly cut herbs. They are just absolutely fantastic. So I exclusively freeze dry my herbs now. I don't use my dehydrator. In fact, I would say that my freeze dryer has completely replaced my dehydrator. The only thing that I use my dehydrator for at this point is for making yogurt. The little kitten is climbing up my leg. This is Poppy. She is just the absolute sweetest little kitten ever. Anyways, back to the freeze dryer. Kitten distraction for a minute. So my recommendation is, if you are into long-term food storage and that's something that's important to you, it's definitely worth the investment. If you are somebody who, say, is an herbalist or sells herbs, 100% worth it, just because the product is so superior to any other way of preserving herbs. It's absolutely fantastic. I think if you do a lot of food preservation, it can also be worth it. I definitely prefer canning to freeze drying. I just like the flavor of the product a lot better, even though the nutritional value of freeze-dried food is far superior. When you freeze dry something, it basically retains, I think it's something like 95% of all of its nutrients and all that kind of stuff, and it's not heated, so you're not killing things or altering things. So from a nutritional standpoint, it's superior. I just personally really love canning, as you know. So canning's my preferred method of food preservation, but I am very grateful to have a freeze dryer. And like I said, I don't run it throughout the winter time. I'm not somebody that's freeze drying leftovers, and to be honest, we almost never have leftovers in our house. It's either eaten at the meal, or it's eaten for lunch the next day. So that's not something that I do. I absolutely love having a freeze dryer. I think it is just fantastic. And if you are going to use it for any of the reasons that I mentioned it, then I think it's probably worth the investment. And on that note, I actually have to go because I have some company coming again. We've had a lot of company over this last week. We have company coming again here in about an hour. So I need to go and get ready. I hope you enjoyed spending some time with me, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.